Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to another episode of the Scho Bro Show. This is the little bro Scho, Dave Schofield, coming at you live. Well, I forgot to say I'm the co-editor behind thesteelcurtain.com, but coming at you once again with his big brother, Rich. Rich, how are you this evening?
Oh, I'm wonderful. I just take one moment and breathe in that sweet smell of victory yet again.
Yes, there it is, the sweet smell of victory.
Seven times.
Yeah, you're right. Seven straight times of being able to breathe it in like that.
Right.
It's fantastic. This is one, I tell you.
I didn't think I was going to get to breathe it in like that at halftime yesterday.
No. Did not. I'll be honest with you. When they came back and just made it a game, I was like, yes, make this a game. Because I had said before, I thought this was the hardest game they had left on their schedule. To go into Baltimore, play them, coming off their bye, and everything else. But this team stayed focused on what they needed to do. And as we're going to see, they need to stay focused ahead if they're going to make some history. So it's funny because did you get to see Steeler Deferred Text today on the website?
I sure did.
Okay, because see, that's part of the focus that the Steelers had. They honed in on one thing that they thought was going to work offensively in the second half. And for two straight drives, that's what they did. And it really worked out. If you didn't check that out, at BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers, make sure you do. But Rich, we're still coming off that big victory. It's called a stranglehold on the AFC North. It is the Steelers to lose at this point. The only thing that was going to keep the Pittsburgh Steelers from winning the AFC North is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Correct. It's all up to them now. Yep. They're in the driver's seat for it. That means we still don't know what's going on when it comes to playoffs. Oh my goodness, we got various things coming in. First, there's been reports of the possibility of a playoff bubble for if that's what needs to happen whenever it comes around, when the playoffs come around. Then there's also the talk. It was even asked of Coach Tomlin today, Tuesday, in his press conference about the possibility of even expanding the playoffs one more team this year to have 16 teams, which means no bye for anybody. Very, very interesting if they would do that. I think that would, of course, leave it up to the NFL that if the Steelers happen to get the 1 seed, they're going to make sure they don't get a bye. But that's more of a talk if they have to, let's say they have to extend a game beyond the regular season, rather than have a team have to take. It's actually a disadvantage then for a team if they would have 2 weeks off, I think is what they're looking at. Lots of different things to look at, but for now, they're still chugging ahead. Week 9, you get through week 9, you're over halfway there of the NFL season. So there they go. It's good to see people coming in, joining in the live chat. We appreciate you all. This is some great time for some Steeler conversation. So Rich, what's your impressions from Sunday? I know you're sucking in that sweet smell of victory. What stood out to you the most?
Yeah, but I'm still recovering from, like my 6th heart attack and 7 wins.
That was something.
Actually, my take, and I actually just kind of caught on to this a little bit ago. So I was watching some stuff on TV. There were 2 very similar games that happened in the NFL this week, and the Steelers were a part of one of those 2 games. And that comes down to a game where one team totally dominated the game over the other team offensively, and yet the team with less offensive stats won the game. Okay?
And that second game was?
The Miami Los Angeles Rams game.
Yeah, because Miami just got some really – and they scored from all kind of phases in that one.
Yes. But when you really look at they won it the way – they won that game the same way the Steelers won the game against the Ravens, and that was figuring out just what do we need to do to win.
Yeah.
And really, that was the Steelers the second half. Steelers on Sunday were like, okay, what do we need to do to win? Well, thank you, Alex Highsmith. I told you all when I saw highlights of this guy when we drafted him that he was going to be a playmaker, and he made a play when we needed it the most on Sunday. And the offense turned right around, turned that into 7 points, and that was the turning point in the game.
That was going to be my question to you. Was that the play that changed everything?
I'd say it was the series of plays between his interception and 2 plays to a touchdown that changed everything.
Yeah, well, and then go to the next one because they went 3 and out on the next one.
Correct. Yes.
They held the Ravens to 3 and out and got the ball back down 3 points. And it just happened all of a sudden. And you expected if the Steelers were going to get back in it, they had to do something on that very first drive. And they come out on the very first play, and it's Juju's very first target, and they get 23 or 24 yards. I can't remember which number it was. Then 3 straight incompletions and a punt. And you're like, oh, okay, I guess the second half's not going to be that much more than what we expect in the first half. But what happened? Stay focused. Do what you got to do. Don't know why they were throwing the ball on their first play of the second half.
I don't know why they bothered to throw the ball, period.
Because bad things happened. I mean, 2 interceptions, 2 fumbles by Lamar that they lost.
2 interceptions, 2 fumbles, and 4 sacks.
Yeah. Yeah. Crazy. I mean, those were the things that they couldn't afford, but he tries to make that throw. Boy, didn't Highsmith go up and make a nice play on that?
He did. He really did a nice job high pointing that football and getting just enough to pluck it out of the air.
And see, no, I just want to say that play was a turning point. There were other plays earlier on. I think people were talking about that if it weren't for those plays, then that couldn't have even been a turning point. Of course, the Spillane pick 6.
Oh, of course.
If the Steelers are down 17-0 at halftime, that's crazy. You're talking about the strip sack to keep them off the board. It probably would have been 3 because I think that was on 3rd down, if I recall.
Yes.
That took 3 points away. And who's to say they wouldn't have gone for it there? It could have even been 7. So that was a big play. That those kind of plays just kept them in it. But then you had what I thought the Steelers were going to get the momentum right before halftime when I thought Joe Hayden came up with that pick. Is that kind of a forgotten play a little bit after everything's said and done? That play's kind of gotten glossed over. But if Joe Hayden comes up with that pick, the Steelers are probably going to get at least 3 out of that and the ball coming out of the half. And instead, the Ratbirds ended up getting 3 points.
Yeah.
So
I'll tell you what, too, that Joe Hayden pick. All right, Joe was trying to sell it when it went to when it was being reviewed, but you could kind of tell from Hayden he knew he didn't have it.
Yeah, he didn't have it. He did not have it, unfortunately. But I mean, it was what it was. But there was some things that I felt the Steelers did that had them really focused, particularly Ben Roethlisberger. Yes, he was 4 of 10 in the first half. But you know what he didn't do? He didn't turn the ball over.
Correct.
He didn't turn the ball over. The one drive they got a little bit going, Chase Claypool had the fumble. That was just a good defensive play. I don't think that Claypool was careless, but he's got to learn from that. If he doesn't learn, he should have gone back and seen week 5 from last season. That may have helped him a little bit.
Get rid of Claypool. He's a chronic fumbler.
Yeah. That's 2 he's fumbled now. But that's the first one he's lost, I think. So, because the other one, remember, almost went out of bounds. Right. That was Denver, which, by the way, with the Steelers being 7-0, that game against Denver where they took a knee inside the 10-yard line is the only game they haven't covered this season. And we're going to get into that more when we look ahead to the Cowboys. So, but that's, sometimes that's something you have to worry about with young players is you got to remember these guys that are professionals, you're basically taking, yes, he played at Notre Dame. So he played against some high quality college competition. Yes. but you basically got to think of, you've got to take the best 2 players on every team you faced all season and put them all together onto one team, and that's who you're playing every week. Right. That's what happens when you go to the pros. So it takes just a little bit more. Hopefully he's learned a lesson with that one. But Ben took care of the ball, and in the second half, my goodness, what he did on those 2 drives, like I laid this out in Vertex. Go ahead, say something.
Some of Jeffrey Benedict's breakdown on some of this stuff offensively today was fantastic on the website. It really was.
Well, that's Jeffrey.
Showing how we took advantage of stacking some receivers and things like that was just perfect. It showed the adjustments the Steelers knew they had to make in the second half offensively to have any success in the passing game. And then once they found it, they were basically like, we're going to stick to this kind of stuff until the Ravens show they can stop it.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what we talked about when we were trying to figure out what we were going to do for our Vertex article. So that's what was going on there. If you haven't checked that out, go to BehindTheStillCurtain.com or go to Google and just type in Steelers Vertex. It's going to come up. But I looked at everything. I broke down every offensive play that the Steelers had in the second half. And you even referred to their last touchdown, the game-winning touchdown, on knee-jerk reactions of every single play on that drive was a pass.
Yes.
Every single play on the first touchdown drive, the first offensive touchdown drive, that I say was the long drive, not the Ebron touchdown, but the one that regained, that got the lead back for them. Almost all of them were passes. They had 3 runs for a total of -1 yards because they had a 1-yard run, a 1-yard touchdown at the end, but they had a 3-yard loss in there. They also had a 7-yard sack that I wasn't counting either way. And then everything else was passes, but they were all completions with the exception of the ones with penalties. Mm-hmm. So they took their shots. As I saw so many people behind the stillcurtain.com making this observation that they were calling them, let's see, what were they calling them? They were saying that the Ravens were playing the Seattle Seahawks defense. Their defensive philosophy of, we're just going to knock you around, be really physical, interfere with you on every play because they're going to get tired of it and they're just eventually not going to call it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what they do.
And yeah.
So that's and it cost the Ravens. And there was times there could have been more pass interference calls. And there might have been one of those that might have been a little bit ticky-tack, but there was probably more missed than what there were ticky-tack ones. But we don't want to get too much into ticky-tack because Cameron Hayward still has a lot to say about ticky-tack I still don't understand how you can get flagged for a late hit out of bounds when both feet from the player are still inbound when he makes contact.
Yeah, I was trying to figure.
They just don't like that he hit him hard on the sideline.
But he didn't hit him.
No, he hit Minka as much as
Minka has a hold of Lamar Jackson, and Cameron Hayward hits Minka in the back.
Yeah.
And that sends Minka and Lamar Jackson tumbling.
Yeah.
Let's throw a flag. I didn't get it.
Yeah, and that is what allowed a punt was coming after that play.
Correct.
That play never should have got to the sidelines. That should have been a sack in the middle of the field. I think it was Dupree that missed that one, but I'm not exactly sure. So crazy stuff. It's so funny because I don't know what I don't live that close to my neighbors, but I'm sure they heard me on Sunday. When that final play happened, I was screaming, of course you've still got people, Ratbirds fans and players and coaches complaining about that last play when multiple people have broken it down to say that was the right call because Minka Fitzpatrick has every right. I know you're about ready to laugh. He has every right to go get that ball. And the fact that the receiver put his head in there, in other words, let his head get in the way of Minka, who could have had an interception if it wasn't for Justin Lane. Yes. That's not a pass interference call. And that could have changed something that would have been a really bad thing. So
no, that play was, you listen to almost every analyst that has looked at that play, and they're saying, that was the right call.
Yeah.
Where was I looking?
This could have been me. Ezra said he got kicked out of the bar at the end, probably from the So, hey, it looks like Mr. L's in the live chat. There we go. So, shout out to Mr. L, right?
That's right.
So, anything more you want to? I mean, I want to soak in this victory, but I don't want the Steelers to soak in this victory. There's still some things from this game that has me a little bit miffed. Okay.
Yeah, but I'm still celebrating. I'm drinking a cheer wine.
There you go. For anyone that was curious about that.
Why am I celebrating? Because, this is historic. Because the last time the Steelers were 7-0, their Big Dave, was the year you were born.
Yes. The year of my birth. I was around for it. I just don't remember it.
What are you talking about? I was around for it. I don't remember it. I was 4 years old.
I was going to say, for those of you that are wondering, it's a 4-year difference between us. So I do want to mention some other things going on with the Steelers. We got some interesting news on the injury front from Coach Tom today. He expects, for those of you that might not have realized this, I picked it wrong. I had a feeling going into the last game that between Mike Hilton and Derek Watt, one of them would dress. They were both questionable, but they wouldn't play. They would only be there in case of emergency. And the reason they still dressed was because the Steelers, what were they going to do? Dress Josh Dobbs, dress an extra lineman? What were they going to do? So they were better off having someone. I thought they might have dressed Mike Hilton and not played him. I guess they resisted the temptation. Mike Hilton wasn't dressed. Instead, it was Derek Watt. Did not play a snap. Right. They elevated Antoine Brooks from the practice squad, the 6th-round rookie from the last draft. Didn't play a snap, from what I understand. They were just listed on the report at the end of DNP, so I didn't actually check the snap counts to see if any of that changed. So, but it looks like Derek Watt, Jordan Dangerfield, they were both listed as players who they expect to be back this week without any reservations. Unfortunately, Mike Hilton was not listed there, but I still think Mike Hilton has a chance to come back and play.
Yeah, I think Coach Tomlin was saying about Hilton, wasn't he, that they're hopeful, but they want to see how his shoulder's doing throughout the week.
Yes. And I know some people are going to have some opinions about these injuries, and we're going to get to that more when we preview this week. You also have Tyson Alualu, who could miss a couple games, but it was an MCL sprain. He's still not ruled out for this week, but I wouldn't put a lot of stock in him playing this week.
Yeah.
But it doesn't look like it's something that's going to be long term. Cam Hayward, on the other hand, they say with his quad, there's a good chance he can play. Jeff Hartman thinks he deserves an Oscar. He says Cam knew what he was doing at the key times that he went down. Not that he wasn't hurting, but he might have been able to play through them. But just based on the timing of everything, he might not have. I think he was dealing with some cramping issues, maybe a mild strain, but hopefully can get back. That's the injury issues. Then you've got the trade.
Oh, yes.
You don't forget the trade.
Oh, yes.
The Steelers go out and get another inside linebacker. And I have to give.
And if I recall, this is the guy that Michael Beck's has been wanting for a while.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I have to give props to Deputy Editor Michael Beck. This was the guy he wanted. This was the guy he said they should go get. And I was kind of like, because I've often learned when you think the Steelers are going to go get a guy, how many times they really go get the guy. I'm still shocked that Minkah Fitzpatrick is in black and gold. I just didn't think they would go get him. I'm still shocked that Joe Hayden ended up in black and gold. I just didn't think they'd make the move because I've conditioned that that's not the way the Steelers operate. But now it's starting to come more. But not only that, what are your thoughts about a half-season rental linebacker with Devin Bush being out? Because you might not need, so that's why it's good that it's a half season. Not terrible against the salary cap.
Right.
A linebacker, I guess I should say 5+ years in the league. Last season, he missed the entire year with an ACL injury. For those of you who don't know, it's Avery Williamson is his name. He missed the entire 2019 season with an ACL injury because, oh man, Jets fans were furious because he was in a preseason game when they felt he had no business being in there. He should have been taken out of that game by then, and he wasn't, and he has the injury, and he's lost for the season. Comes back, and the Steelers go get him. Now, I haven't really watched him play on the field. I know I've seen some breakdowns of stuff. I know we're going to have breakdown of him coming from Jeffrey Benedict at BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers.
I think that's coming out Thursday. If I saw,
he said Thursday. We'll see exactly when it comes out, if you know what I mean. It doesn't. It could possibly, but we'll see. Meaning it could be sooner, but most likely it's Thursday. The other thing that I saw about him, and you hear this from Jets fans, is some of them were happy for him because through this dumpster fire of a season that they're having, he was one voice in the locker room that was still trying to keep this team motivated, that still wanted to stay focused, still wanted to play as hard as he could, and everything else. That's the kind of guy you want to see with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yeah. Jets fans are happy for him that he's got a chance to be on a winning team now. So, I mean, maybe not all of them, but I saw a lot of Jets fans that were happy for the player, that he went from 0-8 to 7-0. I know he's kind of got torched some in coverage.
And part of that was the Jet fans realizing that, he had to lose a year basically because he was in a preseason game when he shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
Like they didn't feel the organization had done him many favors.
Yes.
But trading him then was the favor.
Kind of, yeah, for the most part. Yes.
I mean, gee whiz, the guy makes a 15-game swing.
Yeah. Yeah. The only thing is he will not get a bye week. He will play 17 games this season if he doesn't miss any. Well, maybe not. This might be his bye week coming up because he will not be joining the Steelers because of COVID protocols until Saturday. It's hard to say if the Steelers might announce it as part of their other stuff, if he's going to be out or not. It might just be a game day inactive or not. He might be dressed, but they not put him on defense, maybe get out there, do some special teams, something like that, or they might just wait. It's really hard to say. But Coach Tomlin talked about this today. Michael Beck wrote an article on how he thought he was going to be used. That article was scheduled to run today at 2:30. Coach Tomlin, shockingly, talked about how they plan on using Williamson. I didn't expect him to do that. So we're like,
no, that's not your Coach Tomlin thing.
I got to go look at Michael's article. We might have to do some overhaul. We should have ran it before the press conference, blah, blah. You know what? Do you know what it was? Exactly what Michael said. He said he's not coming in to be the starter right now, but over time, you're going to see a lot of even playing time between those three linebackers. Robert Spillane hasn't done anything to not earn time. But anytime you can even get those, I mean, come on, TJ Watt and Bud Dupree don't play every down. You've got to have other people in there. So we still don't know what the deal was with UG3. We do not know the roster move for Williamson coming in yet. They haven't actually had to make the move. They haven't had to, he's on because of COVID and everything. I think it's because of COVID. Maybe I'm wrong with that. But because he hasn't completely transitioned into the team, he's on a special exemption thing to where he doesn't count for the 53 until they go to use him. So that's good. But once again, got to applaud the Steelers for doing what you need to do, making it happen. With the UG3
injury, we had to do something.
Yeah, you have to do something because
we saw what happened with UG3 in his back last year.
Yes.
How much it really kept him out. And you couldn't take the risk of the same thing going on this year, not having more depth.
And I've said this many times. I would not be surprised if he's still dealing with that back as part of an ailment. And maybe that's why he hasn't even been active as much. You had the same deal with Chukwuekorfor for last year. You're like, well, he wasn't on the injury report. Well, he wasn't injured where he could lose time. It was just inhibiting his performance enough that it wasn't worth him being active.
Right.
So when Chooks had the shoulder issue last year. So it very interesting, very good thing to know and to realize. These are great things for for this Steelers team moving forward. So once again, they make the move. They're focused on doing what they need to do. I know this is where I will give Michael Beck a hard time for forever, because we adamantly disagree on this. There are still some people out there who are, and I will say this, I'll call you out in the live chat. It's okay. We all love the Steelers. We can disagree on these things, who are adamantly incorrect about the fact that the Steelers need to be investing in another backup quarterback at this time. I still can't believe the Steelers are 7-0, and this is what we're hearing. I hate to tell you this, and I know Steelers fans don't want to hear it because they're scared to death of it. If something happens to Ben, everything changes. It doesn't matter if they go out and get the best person available. It's still not going to be the same. Ike Taylor said it on our podcast when we had him on as a guest, not this podcast, but one of our family of podcasts here Behind the Steel Curtain, that it's above the neck. It's above the neck is what Ben Roethlisberger brings. And there is no one that you could have that's going to change that above the neck, regardless of anything else. We're not going to live in our fears. Thank you, Steelers, Pittsburgh. We're not going to live in our fears. I said that all off season, saying if that's where you want to invest your money, you're living in your fears. You're not just all in on this season. You're all in on Ben Roethlisberger as your leader. So that's something that they didn't need to do. And let's roll with this squad now. Let's see what they can do. Okay. So, kind of like that Thanksgiving night isn't end all be all. What do you think of that?
It's not. I mean, how many times has it been? It's like, oh my gosh, this is make or break, and it's not.
Yeah. So I know I don't like to look ahead too much, but at the same time,
yes, I do. I like to look ahead to the next game.
Yeah. At the same time, you play the Ravens 2 times in a season. You at worst want to split. You can't say that at worst unless you win the first one. That's what makes it tough when the first one's on the road. But when you win that first one on the road, then you're like, hey, at worst, it's a split. You know what I mean? That's and right. As long as they keep taking care of business, they're fine. I'm a little bit miffed about some things going on with the Ravens. We'll talk about this here to finish up this half of the show before we take a break. What's your feeling about the COVID situation going on in Baltimore? Because if you recall, the player who tested positive on game day, but they didn't get the result until late that night. And then people are like, well, why have game day testing? Game day testing isn't about the game. It's not about the game. It's about not having a gap.
Yeah, exactly.
It's about not having a gap in your testing. So the problem I have with it was he missed Wednesday due to illness.
Yeah.
That looks bad.
It does.
If it wasn't for that, I would be like, you know what? It was just one of those things. They didn't catch it. But when you miss a day of practice due to illness and then test positive the day of, not a good look for the Ratbirds. What do you think?
Well, I don't know any look that looks good on Ratbirds.
Yeah.
But no, it's not a good look. It's one of those, though, where we're going to sit and hope, as long as we have nobody that ends up positive that we think could be traced back to the game with Baltimore, whatever.
Yeah. I haven't heard that anything from this has changed. I know it was true a couple weeks ago, unless something, because there's so much college football going on. But I haven't heard it has not crossed the line of scrimmage. There has not been a case where it's gone from one team to another because they played during a game.
Let me ask you this. Are you surprised at all that, given the circumstances, he had been ill during the week, but was still getting negative tests? Are you surprised at all? Harbaugh's going to play.
Yeah. You leave it to Wang Harbs.
Yeah.
It's like, we need him against the Steelers.
That's right.
So, honestly, if it had been even a guy that gets 20% of the snaps on defense, yeah, he'd have been out.
Or if they'd have been playing, I don't know, Cincinnati or the Jets or somebody.
Now they have 7 players on the COVID list. I think it's 7, if I recount. if I recall. But of course, Humphrey can return if they continue to have negative tests all the way up through Saturday. They can return and play on Sunday. Something else I'm kind of miffed about this game on Sunday with the Ravens. I thought the NFL was better than this. Why is the head official in the Baltimore-Indianapolis game from Baltimore?
Because the NFL loves the Ravens and hates the Steelers.
Yeah, I'm like, why in the world how is that? I didn't think they were allowed to do that. The head official is from Baltimore and is traveling. I mean, is he going to ride on the team plane and traveling to Indianapolis to referee the game involving the Ravens? I have a little bit of a problem with that. I thought the NFL was better than that. I mean, a lot of people aren't, they're like, oh, that doesn't surprise me at all. But I didn't think they would do that. But a lot of people don't know where officials are from. But I know in this case, because of I know people that are employed at his same place of employment. So, and as you know, I'm not all that far from Baltimore here. So that's why. So it's kind of interesting with that. So how things play out. Really frustrated about that whole COVID situation. But you know what? As long as the Steelers come through clean, I'm going to be very disappointed if the only thing that gives the Steelers a hiccup when it comes to that is because of somebody like the Ratbirds doing something they shouldn't have done. That'll tick me off. Okay. But you know what? More importantly, they got the W. They got the W. That's what matters. They got the W. Doesn't matter that Baltimore had twice as many yards. Doesn't matter. Okay. It all comes down to they took care of the ball and they moved it when they had to. It's almost like they didn't even try to move it when they weren't trailing in the second half. It was kind of crazy. So, yeah. So anything else you want to say about that before we move on to good old week 9?
No, just, it was nice to get that winning against Baltimore. I love it.
Yeah.
All my Baltimore fans on Facebook went very quiet. They got very silent. They talked a lot of trash before the game, but none of them have said a word since the game ended. It's kind of funny.
Other than BTSC, I haven't been on Facebook for a very, very long time. I scrolled through Sunday evening just to see if there was any one of those Baltimoreans had anything that they wanted to say. Crickets. So I'm like, that's what I like. So we are going to take, for those of you here watching on YouTube, we're just going to take a very quick several second break. For those of you listening on audio form, get ready to click over to part 2 because we are going to talk about the focus that this Steelers team needs in order to make sure that they make history on Sunday. So get ready to click on over. And for those of you on YouTube, stick around. We'll be right back. And we are back, Pittsburgh Steelers fans. This is Dave Schofield, co-editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, along with the Big Bro Scho, my brother Rich. Rich, you're still, I'm sorry, it's the second half of the show. Breathe it in again.
But I'm still breathing in that sweet smell of victory.
That's how big that win was. That win was huge for this Steelers team. It was huge. Now they got to turn around in a game that was not what Steelers fans thought they were going to be getting back in May when the schedule came out. I have to go back and double check. I'm pretty sure I had this notched up as a loss to the Steelers right off the bat.
I don't remember if it was you or Brian or Lance or somebody when you all were doing your show on that.
I'll have to look. But because
I think that had this one as a loss. There might have been 2 of you.
Yeah, because I just found it. This would have been in week 9. I had it as a loss, and one Lance Williams had it as a loss.
Okay.
Because, well, first of all 4 of us, even the great Jefferson Bartholomew Hartman, had the game in Baltimore as a loss. So, man, that was nice. All I have to say is another props to Deputy Editor Michael Beck. He predicted the Steelers being undefeated when they went into Baltimore. That was his bold prediction. And the problem was he didn't take it far enough. He needed to predict that they were going to be undefeated leaving Baltimore. So the reason this one was, I'm sorry, I keep pointing my pencil with the screen. I got to stop doing that. The reason that this game was kind of chalked up as a loss in my eyes is you were going on the road into Dallas. The Steelers were initially 3-point underdogs, which meant they were supposed to be even with the Cowboys at the beginning of the season. They were coming off their bye and going on the road. But the Steelers aren't coming off their bye.
Correct.
Right now. And the line from this game, from last night to today, changed if you could find it. It was almost impossible to find a betting line from this game because of all the unknowns. Last night, when I write the article for the opening odds, I finally found it at 9.5 points favored for the Steelers. Then you get the news today. Is Andy Dalton going to play? Is Andy Dalton going to play? He's in the concussion protocol. He's still in the protocol. Is he going to play? And the answer is he is not. And it's not because of the concussion protocol. He got put on the COVID list and has been ruled out. So that was pretty interesting right there, I would have to admit. I'm not shocked that he's not playing, but I was shocked as to why. So that's one. Then, of course, you get a lot of local Pittsburgh media doing an article. I saw multiple articles from outlets here, and I don't blame them. This is the same kind of stuff we would have done. It's funny because Jeff Hartman had just put out an article about Andy Dalton still being in the concussion protocol, and then they said he wasn't doing it because of COVID. I instantly had to go in and change everything. Like it was within 5 minutes after the article published that the news broke. I just got an "oh crap" message from Jeff Hartman about that. So then, but they wrote this article about former Pitt quarterback is going to be starting against the Steelers. Nope. It's DiNucci. I'm pretty sure I got that. I butcher names all the time. Cowboys are saying they're not going to start him after the game that he had the last week. They're bringing up one player from the practice squad, and then the other player they have. I should probably bring up these names to know them, but I don't remember them right now. They're going to battle it out and name a starter at the end of the week. Now, part of me is wondering, do they just want to do this to the Steelers because they don't want them to be able to plan on whichever quarterback is going to be?
Yes.
So I think that's part of it. I think they know who's going to play. I just think they're saying
we're talking about Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy knows who his quarterback's going to be.
Yeah.
He's just not saying it.
Yes. And this is in what most Steelers fans are going to say. And it was the first thing, of course, it's what almost everybody said in the first comments to the odds article. And that was when it was at 9.5. You know, their best Admiral Akbar impersonation. Who's got the better impersonation of this? Do you have it or me?
I don't know. We could give it a shot.
Okay. It's a trap. You go for it.
It's a trap.
I don't know whose was better. They were probably both.
They were both pretty terrible.
No, I could guarantee that we were both light years ahead of one Brian Anthony Davis because he can't do any kind of impression at all.
No.
So
we love you, Brian, but you're not great at impressions.
Yeah, for the nerdy ones out there, that's a Star Wars Return of the Jedi reference. People want to say that this is a trap game for the Steelers.
Hilarious. Before the show tonight, I was watching that movie.
Oh, yeah, it's been on TV recently. I've seen.
Yeah, I was watching. So
yes, of course I think people on YouTube can see I'm a little bit of a Star Wars guy with my Kylo Ren helmet and everything. So they say this is a trap game. I don't know that this is a trap game. I mean, it has all the earmarks for it, but I don't think that's the case with this team. And I've got to bring up a conversation.
Well, hold on. Before you bring up the conversation, let me tell you why I don't think it's a trap game. Because I just watched the Dallas Cowboys play against the Philadelphia Eagles, and I saw Carson Wentz turn the ball over left and right.
And they still crushed
the Cowboys scored 3 field goals for the entire game.
Okay. Here's the other thing we got to remember. See, people, hey, you know what? This is what the Steelers need to focus on. And Mike Tomlin alluded to this today. Okay. This is still a 5-star matchup. Because we're in it. That's his quotes. 5-star matchup because we're in it. Dallas is down, but you have to remember this. Dallas is down, but they're not out. This is a really important point that the Steelers need to focus on. They are down, but they are not out. They are 1.5 games back. They have 2 wins, and they are a game and a half out of the division right now. So a win against the Steelers, who already beat the Eagles, that's who they're chasing, one of the teams. And that's the motivation for the Steelers. Hey, they are right in it. They are right there in their division race. This game is huge for them. Don't let the overall record fool you. They're in the hunt. So we've got to think of them as a team in the hunt.
They are going into this game with the idea what they need to do is get a win this week.
Yes.
We need to be going in thinking the same thing.
Yes. But here's the other thing on the other side of the coin that the Steelers need to ignore. They need to focus on that part of the Cowboys. Ignore the fact that the last 2 weeks, the Cowboys have played games against their fellow divisional teams, which everybody, if you just woke up because you decided to take try to rip Van Winkle through the coronavirus and you're just coming to, you set your alarm for November 3rd. Sorry, that's just ironic. We're not going there. The NFC East sucks. Okay, you can't say it any different.
It's sad
that
a team from that division has to make the playoffs.
Yes. And not only that, they're going to get to host a game if they don't do the bubble thing and they do the playoffs like we're planning on it. But the Cowboys have played 2 teams from the NFC East the last 2 weeks and have not scored a touchdown. They did not score a touchdown on the football team. It's so weird to call them that. And they have not scored a touchdown. They did not score a touchdown against this, in the city of brotherly love. They didn't do either. No touchdowns against either team.
That's rough.
And that is why the Steelers are favored by 13.5 points on the road. I can understand that.
I think that we should have been favored 13.5 to begin with. And when Andy Dalton went out, that should have gone back to 9.5, just because we know the Steelers' history with Andy Dalton. But I guess they're not taking that into account.
Yeah, that's probably what's really going on, But like Coach Thomas said today, we're very familiar with Andy Dalton. We're not familiar with him in this scheme. Okay, I can give you that. That was Coach Tomlin giving Coach Tomlin speak.
Yes.
So Steelers have to be focused. They have a chance to make history. They have a chance, and I'm not talking about 19-0 or that. I'm talking 1 week at a time. The Steelers have never started 8-0.
Have never started 8-0.
Never.
This is their chance to go 8-0 and reset the record book of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Don't pull Baltimore. Baltimore had started 5-1 the 2 other times they had won the Super Bowl. Never started 6-1. And they didn't do it. Steelers took care of that. Steelers push it to 7-0, tie the franchise record. Make history on Sunday, but you got to stay focused. You've got to make sure you realize that this is a team that's still in the hunt for their division. And you know what? I don't know if I can, as much as I think the Steelers could and should cover in this game, I don't like picking the Steelers to cover when the point spread's that big. Because, as I mentioned in the first half of the show, Steelers have covered all but one game this year. The only game they haven't covered, they were favored by 7.5 points. And they won by 5 and took a knee inside the 10-yard line down the game because you don't care about covering. Other than that, the Steelers are covering their games. And the reason I think that's important is because when you're playing down to teams, as some people say the Steelers like to do, you know what you don't do when you play down to teams? You don't cover. People were upset about the whole Philadelphia Eagles game. They were up 17 and they ended up only winning by 9 and blah, blah, blah. But you know what they did? They covered. So, and you was like, oh, well, what's the point spread? You know what? the people that set these spreads have a lot of money on the line being off on these spreads, so they know what they're doing. So it's going to be tricky about this with the Steelers when it comes to covering the spread. I got to let you know what was said in a conversation with some of the BTSC staff. When Michael Beck shared the news that it could be Cooper Rush who could be starting for the Cowboys, he said that if the Steelers don't win this week, it could be the most embarrassing trap loss ever. And I told him, I'm like, stop looking at the negative. Don't look about what if they're going to lose. They're going to win. He says it should be a 50-0 win, and that's why he's scared. And he says, that's how I feel until they prove me otherwise. And Jeff Hartman's like, well, doesn't 7-0 prove anything? Michael's response was legendary, in my opinion. I have to let you know this, okay? Because it's the typical Steelers fan. He says the Steelers aren't going to prove anything to him, not until they knock off a terrible team on the road. Doesn't matter that they beat Baltimore in Baltimore when they were underdogs. That didn't prove anything. To prove they're not the typical Pittsburgh Steelers, they've got to beat a bad team on the road and not screw it up to prove that they are different.
I thought we did that week 1.
That's what Jeff said. He's like, what was week 1? But you know what? Michael had a good point. He had a good rebuttal right away. Didn't let it sit for a while. Right away said both teams were 0-0 at the time. If you're playing the Dallas Cowboys week 1, you're not thinking that it's a terrible team on the road.
That's correct.
But you're not playing them in week 1. You're playing them in week 9. I've seen other people say it.
When the schedule came out, or right when the season started, wasn't Dallas favored in this game?
Yeah, 3 points. They were 3-point favorites. So that meant that they thought the Cowboys and Steelers were even teams. They got the 3-point home field advantage.
Right.
So, and going into the season, you thought that. Now, did you think the Cowboys defense would be this bad? No. You thought that the Cowboys were going to be a better team under Mike McCarthy.
You thought they'd be better offensively, but they're not.
Yeah, but even before the Prescott injury, which I saw that, I was that was when I was driving back from your house.
Oh, that was
the same. That was the same as the Eagles game. I actually had my phone sitting on Red Zone, sitting up on my dash as I'm driving, so I could kind of see the scores are going. I saw that live on Red Zone. I mean, as they were covering it, and it was like, oh my goodness. I pushed the phone down because I didn't want the kids to see it.
I was like, oh, this and that. And they were getting ready to do the replay. And I was, because, my wife came out and I think Alex came over and they were like, what? And I was like, oh, you don't want to watch that.
You don't want to see this.
And Renee saw it and was like, oh,
you don't want to see this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
don't want to see this.
That was rough, and that changed a lot for Dallas.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question.
Okay.
So for the Steelers defensively, what do you feel they're playing as?
They're playing for the Dallas Cowboys. Well, I don't think their plan is to let's give guys an extra week to get healthy. That's a terrible plan. So I'm throwing that plan out the window. I know I haven't been looking at the live chat. I mean, I've glanced at it some here and there, but I haven't really paid attention. There might have been people suggesting that. And I will never suggest that. And here is why. Are you ready? October 25th, 2015. That's why. October 25th, 2015. This is before I was a part of Behind the Steel Curtain. So when I heard stuff from fans, it wasn't BTSC fans. So if BTSC fans did not say these things, great for you. But some of the other Steeler fans I heard said this. The Steelers I think they were 4-2 coming into the game, and they were traveling to the 1-5 Kansas City Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
And Ben Roethlisberger was coming back from injury. And I heard Steeler fans saying, sit Ben for one more week. We can beat Kansas City without him. Seriously, sit Ben for one more week. We can beat Kansas City without him. That started a big streak for Kansas City, and they made the playoffs that year. I'm pretty sure.
Believe it or not, I remember where I was when that game happened.
Yeah, they lost 23-13.
I actually saw pictures of it on my Facebook memories the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I was actually riding the ferry between Surrey and Williamsburg, crossing the James River. We had taken the kids on a trip, and Renee wanted to go over. I was like, how about the game? She's like, well, you can listen to it on satellite radio. So I was listening to it was awful.
Yes, it was. Terrible. I did not get that game, and that was when I didn't have other places to watch it. I listened to that game on the radio at my house. I'm walking around, listening to it on the radio, and I'm just fuming. And I'm like, people actually wanted Ben Roethlisberger, if he was okay to come back, to not come back, just to make sure, because they could win the game without him. No. This is the NFL. You don't take anything for granted. If Cam Hayward can go, Cam Hayward should go. If Mike Hilton is ready, Mike Hilton needs to be ready. I don't think Tyson Alualu is going to be ready. I just don't think that's going to be on the table right now. So don't have that mentality. That's the defensive philosophy. Bottom line is this. You could take this two ways. I see this game going much like week one, that they will look at Ezekiel Elliott the same way they looked at Saquon Barkley and say, we need to not – that's the one guy that can get us. Yes, they have good receivers.
They do.
You know, they have good receivers. They have Amari Cooper. They have CeeDee Lamb. They might be doing what the Steelers have done with their receivers in the past, which they didn't do at all against Baltimore, shockingly, and be getting them the ball on sweeps and reverses and things of that sort to try to get the ball in the hands of their playmakers, because they don't know if they're going to have anyone that can throw them the ball to do that. The Pittsburgh Steelers have to stay focused, because how many times, and this was what I was waiting for the Steelers for in 2019, how many times do you see some no-name quarterback come in and play in their first game, and then they're all the sensation? I'm thinking of like a Gardner Minshew. I'm thinking even like you could even say Duck Hodges a little bit there. You can't let the Cowboys duck you up.
Wait a minute.
You can't let it happen.
Wait a minute. That's going to be an article tomorrow from one Brian Anthony Davis. That sounds like what he'd want to write. I'll expect to see that on the website.
Yeah.
I totally get what you're saying. You don't want some unknown to come in and make a name for themselves.
And what better chance to then go up against the last undefeated team in the NFL, the legendary Pittsburgh Steelers, and to come out and in your first start. That's why I'm kind of wish it would have been DiNucci, because we kind of already know that what happened with his first start, and come out in the first start and make their name in the NFL and pull I'm going to forget the guy's name. Shoot, that went to Seattle, got the big contract, got beat out by Russell Wilson. Because he was the backup in Green Bay. It's Jeff Hartman's contract heroes
from Green Bay a few years back, but nobody can remember the guy's name.
Yeah, Flynn, Dallas. Thank you, Flynn, Matt Flynn.
Thank you, Dallas. Yes.
Matt Flynn. You don't want a Matt Flynn situation where they come in and can do something and then they can get a big contract. You could almost say Osweiler was the same kind of deal. You know, did enough with it with the team, because Dallas does have the weapons on offense. I just don't know that Dallas has the defense. Their defense has really been struggling. Their Dallas offensive line's in trouble with injuries and
stuff. They looked better and got the turnovers against Philadelphia. But I'm sorry, some of those turnovers on Philadelphia was Wentz doing I don't know what.
Those weren't takeaways. Those were turnovers.
Yeah.
There is a difference.
Those were
Alex Highsmith, takeaway. He made a play. You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
I'm trying to think. Lamar Jackson almost had another turnover. Remember the play where he just was running open in the field and lost the ball and it went out of bounds?
Yes.
You know, that's a turnover. No one even hit him and he lost the ball. That's a turnover. That's not a takeaway. You know what I mean? Just
Yes.
they're both what they are. But I think you all understand what I'm saying with the mentality of it. So focus. I think that's their defensive strategy. You try to come back and see if you can shut down the run game. With Nuwalu, I could see them going with a different strategy, saying, maybe we've got to just say, hey, we got to get to this quarterback early and often and just take him out of the game from the very beginning to where they can't do anything. I could see that as a philosophy. So I kind of like that it's not super easy to predict. I like that you could look at it either way, which was kind of like the Steelers offense.
I think the defense needs to keep doing to Dallas what has happened to Dallas the last 2 weeks, and that is let's not give any touchdowns. Best we give them is field goals. If Dallas has to kick a bunch of field goals, we're winning the game. Yeah.
The Steelers need to remember this one. I mean, they don't need to think this going into the game, but what we want to see from quality and play on the field is, remember, Pittsburgh Steelers, for those of you listening in audio podcast form, my hand is at the top of the screen. Screen. Baltimore Ravens. I have a little bit below the Steelers. They're a good team. They have a great defense. Steelers really had to get creative in the second half to come back to win that game. Dallas Cowboys. I have that down the bottom of the screen. They do not have the defense that the Ravens had, and the Steelers still were able to do what they needed to do to win that game. So that's what I think is the biggest key. Are you ready for how we've been finishing up our show every week?
I think we should get to it.
Yes. What we've been doing, for those of you that may be new to the show, I asked Rich for his score prediction. I don't give mine yet because I have to do it on Thursday, so I get to hold off. So I have Rich do a score prediction.
Last week I ended up having to change between when we did the podcast and when we put the story out on BTSC.
You're in on that story now.
Yeah. I made a slight change.
You're allowed to do that because
it's down to a 3-point game. Took it down to a 3-point game, and we ended up a 4-point game. So
well, I predicted a 4-point game.
Yep.
I just had 3 more points for each team.
All right.
I think one of the Australian blokes only missed it by 1 point on each team. I think they had because it was instead of 28-24, they had 27-23. That was pretty good.
You never put the question up there. Everybody's
I haven't. People were putting it in the live chat. I'm not bringing up any of your comments until you see me have the comment in there, and I don't do it until you give yours.
Better.
Until Rich gives his, I don't put it up there. So, Rich, it is on you.
Okay, maybe I should
this Sunday.
Maybe I should take Kyle's then.
Maybe you should. 4:25 Eastern Standard Time. Steelers are going to be facing off against the Dallas Cowboys. 3 to 3.5 hours later, the final score of the game will be
34-12
in favor of
the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Of course. And here we go. I am now turning this over to the live chat for you all to throw your scores out there. Notice we didn't have anyone answer anything for a while because they were waiting for me to put that out there. So if you already had it in there before, go ahead and put it out there again, because I 34-12. So you think only field goals for Dallas, or do you think they'll miss next point?
Field goals for Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
The Steelers score 4 touchdowns, 2 field goals. We punt the ball once at most.
And you said 34-12?
Yes.
And your son Kyle has 34-17. Okay. Jay Hicks has 52-14. Okay. Ooh, this is jumping. Okay. So here we go. Double HH says the D will have 7 to 9 sacks. I don't know that I'm going to go that far. Because it really depends on what quarterback ends up playing. It's going to be interesting, but that could happen. This is why it's a hard game to bet on, because you don't know who's quarterbacking. How about Dusk Thunder 9 says 28-0 Steelers. OC Cams says 35-0. Shut out these chumps. I could see that. I'm not. You guys are going to have to wait to see what I say on Thursday. Christopher has 38-3. Double HH did put a score up there, 32-9. And then he said about the sacks. Donald Nolan, 38-10 Steelers. I'll mess it up. Okay, says 30-9. Isaiah Ramirez, 31-21. Do you think that the Cowboys will put up 21 points?
I don't think I don't see the Cowboys put up
unless their quarterback's looking pretty good. Okay, Mark has 35-10. Steelers Pittsburgh has 30-3. Now we get to our live chat, our super chat from a friend of the show, Isaac Aguilera. He was who donated the Juju Smith-Schuster jersey for a giveaway that we had before. $5 into the tip jar. We thank you for that. He says, I need the Steelers to slap the dog crap out of the Ravens Thanksgiving. I'm tired of the narrative the Steelers aren't what their record indicates. I mean, yeah, that's interesting. You know what? We'll get to that game. That's going to be crazy. That game doesn't mean as much now when I like it because of what the Steelers did Sunday. Let's make sure we don't look past these next three because, I mean, they don't play anyone with a winning record the next three games, the Steelers do. You know, after the Cowboys, they got the Bengals who looked, I mean, they took it to the Titans.
They took it to the Titans.
So knocked a lot of people out of the survivor pool. We're down to 43 people in the survivor pool. And it would have been under 30 if the Giants would have pulled off that win on Monday night. So moving on to Felicia, who has 41-9. I like that one.
I like that one.
Ryan has 42-10. He's like, no way. Should they even score in the 30s for this massacre? The thing is if you know the Steelers, they could get up and they could just slow it down. They really could. That's what you got to think of. And just say, control, run less plays, because with every play you run, there's another chance of
when we're leading, like 28-3 or 28-6, we're killing clock.
Yeah, gotta kill clock. I would love to see Mason Rudolph hand the ball off 17 times in this game.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. And get 3 carries of taking a knee. Okay. Cree says 37-6 with a pick 6. Ooh, I can see like that. That's the thing with a young quarterback. There's a chance for some more takeaways for the Steelers there. So that could be huge in this game.
Oh, yeah.
Ford F-150, 26-14.
Minka's already salivating.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. And Mango Matcher says, all we know is that the quarterback will be worse than Andy Dalton. Do we?
That's why I said maybe the line should have gone the other way when,
Yeah. Do we? That they're supposed to be worse than Andy Dalton. That's what we'll say. Okay. Isaac says 38-0. Show America the Steelers are the world's team. I like that one. Paul says 41-17. Jay Hicks gave his score to start, but he said Ben will score 4 TDs and the offense will make a big jump and will be considered top 10 after this game. I don't need the offense to be top 10. I don't need the defense to be top 10. I need the Steelers to be top 1. That's what I want to see. Yeah. Okay. Ezra saying Bud with 2 sacks. Ezra says Nelson gets his 3rd pick. Donald wants to know why no one can say this name right that I can't. I haven't watched that movie in forever, Donald. That's probably why I can't get that right. So here we go. Ali, here's your score.
Yes.
Steelers 133, Dallas 2. Mason Rudolph at the end ends up taking a safety.
That's hilarious.
I love it. I love it. It seems like a lot of the scores, we're getting other predictions coming in, but a lot of the scores are dried up. That's good because we are past our time. It's been a great time, a great show. I really want to revel in this Ravens win, but I'm scared about not giving the due diligence that a matchup that you just hear Pittsburgh Steelers, Dallas Cowboys deserves. Doesn't matter that they're down. If this was 2019 when the Cowboys were doing all right and the Steelers were having a down situation with their offense because of the quarterback situation, this would be like, if you beat the Cowboys, that really says something. Same deal going the other way around. Steelers have to stay focused, make history on Sunday. Does that sound good to you, Rich?
Yeah, I just want them to make sure that they do what they need to do so that I can come back and breathe in that sweet smell of victory.
Yeah, exactly. We want to come back and yes, that's exactly what we want to do. So real quick, make sure if you are listening to this in podcast form, you know about all our podcasts because unless you've just stumbled on this. If you just stumbled on it, make sure you subscribe to our channel because there are so many podcasts out there. Like today, I got to think there was 4 podcasts out there today alone. You had the both parts of the Steelers Hangover. You had the live mic is the audio only show this morning. You had the Mike Tomlin press conference recap, which I made sure I checked out from one Jefferson Hartman. You're getting tons of content out there on the audio side. If you're one of those people that just listens on YouTube and watches on YouTube, check out that audio only stuff. There's some good stuff. Jeff's Let's Ride on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. They're great. My Stat Geek, I kind of break down the matchup each week with numbers. If hopefully it's your thing. I have fun doing it. I don't know if people like it or not. It's just one of those things. So, but we are here for the live shows on YouTube as well. 6 days a week, Saturday through Thursday. So tomorrow night you will have a Know Your Enemy. It might be a little bit of a different lineup of who's on that show because of an availability of one of our people, but we do have someone coming in from the Cowboys to talk about that one. Then Thursday night, you've got the preview. Saturday, you've got Tony doing his brunch, and I'll tell you, he hits go live like right at noon on the dot. It's crazy. Then Sunday, you'll watch by him. Yeah. Sunday, you'll get a post-game show. Then we're back to a hangover on Monday, and we'll be back next Tuesday, right, Rich?
That's my plan.
Yep. Make sure you're checking out BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. It's your one-stop and non-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. Rich, anything else for the good of the order before we sign off?
So,
all right. Well, let's just get back here next week, and hopefully we'll be, breathing in that sweet smell of victory, and we will see you next Tuesday.
Can't wait.